Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Game Theory Podcast. This is episode 45, Assassin's Creed and Freedom!
Freedom!
Freedom ain't free.
No, there's always a price to be paid. If you could hear this message in English, think a soldier.
You're right. Such as myself, you may send all thanks to the Game Theory Podcast at gmail.com. Now, yes, good weekend. How was your July 4th?
Pretty great. Went down to your old stomping grounds of Bentonville, Arkansas for visit some family.
Heyo! What'd you do there?
Well, for lunch, I went to a place. Now, get this. Consider how happy I was when I saw the sign. Top sign. Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas Fencing Association. Come inside and fence. Bottom sign. Korean lunch and sushi buffet. I see you're flipping me off.
Turn on my camera just for that. You're welcome. Yeah, so you got a little bit of culture there in Bentonville.
Yeah, how are things in Mississippi, culture-wise, and in general?
Shut your face hole. You know it was terrible. Wait, first, you said there was Korean food? Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. They had samgyeopsal, which is like it's kind of like super bacon. That's how I would describe it. It's like Korean barbecue with super bacon. I had bulgogi and dak bulgogi, which is different. It's like chicken and beef, and the chicken's really spicy.
Sounds good. I'll have to try that when I come down there. Actually, I spent July 4th in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, so also a cultural black hole.
Yeah, right. That's where they filmed The Walking Dead. Cultural
Yeah, I know.
mecca.
See, there you go. It's actually they're building one of the largest movie production buildings, I guess, or something over there. It's like a big deal down there. Everyone's freaking out. But yeah,
They
my
they also have Comic Con there. No, yeah, Dragon Con. They have Dragon Con there, which
Dragon
is
Con,
another cultural thing to see that doesn't happen in Mississippi.
a mecca. Yeah, that also brings shambling people from all
Shambling
places
hordes
to
of
its corners. Yeah.
unwanted masses.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. We went there and let me see. Amy had a race I was supposed to run to, but I injured myself during the epic bachelor party.
Such a
Um,
racist.
and I am a racist. It was a 10K. It's the world's largest 10K actually. There's like 175,000 people show
It's
up.
one
I
of
think it
those
was.
parsec things where it's like a 10K is just 10 kilometers, but you have the world's largest 10 kilometers.
Yeah. You know what? Amy's dad made the same joke, so you should probably slap yourself.
Oh man, I
Um,
hate myself now.
It was like largest 10K. Is it 11K? We were like, oh, dad joke. But yeah, as far as like attendance, it's a bunch of people. Most of them aren't even runners; they're just spectators. But they just all just line the sides of the roads and go crazy. So I was supposed to run, but I thought it was a big serious thing because I heard it was the largest, and a lot of elite runners show up, like famous runners. So,
Hmm.
but then I showed up and it's not. Like it's kind of a joke, like people just kind of run it for fun, and there's some serious ones, but. So I was like, well, I'm wearing flip-flops, but even still, I kind of debated running. I was like, can I make 6 miles in flip-flops? I think I can.
Yeah, you wounded yourself pretty bad doing that random somersault.
That's so bad.
The important
Somehow,
thing was it was important that you do it.
that was just my shoulder. Like somehow I hurt my calf somewhere along the way. I don't even know what it was. When
Probably
that
while we were
happened.
running from zombies.
Well, yeah, it must have been. But anyway, so I was like, I haven't trained in like 3 weeks, and there's no way, man. Like I won't be able to keep up. But then I looked at their time, and they ran like an 11 minute because there's just like nobody's really running. A lot of people just kind of shuffling around, and like because there's beer on the side, there's like donuts. It's more of like a street party kind of thing. So I was like, are you kidding me?
They should do one of those zombie runs in Atlanta. That'd be fun.
That would be cool. Yeah, I would do that. But anyway, so that's what I did. We shot off some fireworks. My son learned it's not a smart thing to grab a sparkler because it's
Mm.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, pretty good. Pretty good. Good time.
So you linked me a video this week too from Ego Raptor, Leia's sequelitis.
Yes.
That was hard to watch, man. It hurt inside because he was
I
right.
know. 'Cause you have to kind of admit, right, to yourself.
Yeah,
About
like he's like, just throw the nostalgia out the window for a minute, and let's just all agree that Ocarina of Time is seriously overrated. And I was like, no, you shut your mouth right now. But he was right. He was right. It was surely nostalgia that triggers most of my good feelings for that game.
Yeah, and he was pretty fair about it. He's like, hey, there's genuinely good parts here, but then he
He was
focused on all the
kind of
bad
addicted
parts.
to Skyward Sword. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Hey, shut up! You're not good.
Nobody likes you, Skyward Sword.
I do it. What was it? I do intuitive 3D. Let's landscapes. Hey, shut up, Ocarina. Or shut up, Skyward Sword. No one's talking to you.
God,
He
why are
was-
you even here? Yeah, but he at the end he talked about Link Between Worlds. That was pretty spot on in his praise.
Ah,
Everything
yeah,
he
you played
was
that.
about was like, oh, it turns out Link Between Worlds does that, and he must have been happy to see the E3 demo because that new Zelda he showed seems to have solved a lot of the problems he had with the old one.
Yes,
Very
absolutely.
open world. So check out Ego Raptor's YouTube page. He's got a series called Seek Elias. We've already talked about his Mega Man versus Mega Man X show.
Mm-hmm. That was very good.
And yeah, this guy he's smart.
He's kind of a goober, but yeah, he makes some really good points.
Yeah, like strangely enough, he's funny, but also smart.
Yeah, it's almost like it's weird.
Weird.
But,
They always go hand in hand.
It is very weird. About that, did you guys set off any fireworks?
Oh yeah, my cousin had some kind of hookup. He works at the Walmart main office down in Bentonville. So there's the random guy just oh yeah, got all kinds of fireworks here. Tell me what you need. You want show stuff? He's the weird what you buying
What are you
kind
buying?
of guy.
Yeah. What are you selling?
He's trying to give him. He's yeah, I can get you some of those stuff. When they do the city fireworks shows with the computers.
Yeah.
Get you some of those. No, probably smaller. So we had a lot of stuff to blow up.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. It's very good. Happy July 4th, everyone. Belated, of course. By the time you hear this, it won't be the July 4th. It'll be July something else.
Oh, and in celebration of July 4th, the Epic Rap Battles of History has done a William Wallace versus George Washington rap battle.
Oh, yeah. Who do you think won that?
Oh, man, I was kind of going to go with George Washington. He raised some interesting points about how he's on a bunch of money, and William Wallace got drawn and quartered and shipped off to every corner of the country.
That's how I felt. I felt it was a sweep. I was like, oh man, he beat the crap out of William Wallace, which sucks because my people are from Scotland. But hey, well, you call it like you sees it, and that was pretty clearly him. But then a bunch of people in the comments were like, William Wallace, clearly. I was like, it wasn't even funny.
People like to over-identify with William Wallace. So oh, my people are from Scotland. It's well, they're also from America. Yeah, but that was such a good movie, Braveheart. It's okay, well, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, but they fought for their independence. They lost. America, we won.
It was the same story, but with a better ending.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a lot of news. You want to move into recent news?
Yeah, let's move on.
Recent news. We don't have any cool bumpers like that bring in the word, so I'm just gonna do it with my face hole. This face hole that God gave me.
Nice.
God from America.
From America. God invent America.
You may have heard of him. God, he's a big deal. He's from here.
America. Yeah, so let's start off with our D20 Radio Network podcast recommendation.
D20 Radio.
It's us and other networks, and this one is called Threat Detected. It's a live play podcast, which are all the rage these days.
Yes. Speaking of live play, you'll be down here soon and playing live as well, right? And we'll be recording that?
Yes, and we'll actually start editing those as well.
Yes, it'll be great. You'll love it.
But this one, Threat Detected, it's a Dawn of Defiance podcast. Now, you and I played a little Dawn of Defiance together, but I GM'd for a college group a lot of Dawn of Defiance. It was that adventure path for Star Wars Saga Edition.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to listen to, just to see how different people went through different adventures. Like one of the more recent ones, they're supposed to fight these space pirates in battle over this planet and then kind of crash land on it. And they nearly blew up. It was almost a total party K. So pretty fun there. The most recent episode, Fascinating Joy, parts 1 and 2, they talk with a kind of an improv comedian and how he works that improv comedy into his GMing style.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like a live play, but they do interviews too. So anyone that's really into role playing likes to listen to those. It's a fun one, especially when it's played. Yeah, nerds.
But anyway, I got a role play. Speaking of role play. No,
Yes?
I didn't. I was just. I'm a nerd too. A lot of news. I put a bunch of stuff on Twitter this week. It seemed like just stuff was popping up everywhere. So one was a study that was done that they used some neuroimaging, and they looked at people's brains when they took some psychedelics, two kinds of psychedelics. One, lysergic, whatever, blah, 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 LSD. And the other one was psilocybin, which is magic mushroom, quote unquote. Yeah. So they checked out Mario's brain as he ate the magic mushroom, got bigger. But as it turns out, it kind of slows down the activity and the part of your brain, like the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, like kind of portion of your brain or I think prefrontal cortex in general, where you do a lot of self-judgment and self-awareness. Like whenever you're a teenager, this part's going crazy. We run everything through that, like how a judgment about ourselves and
Yeah,
like
which is
you
why
remember how
peer pressure
self-conscious you were.
works so well on
Yep.
teens.
Yeah, and you're like identifying who you are and stuff like that. Well, yeah. So what this does is it quiets down the activities there, kind of inhibits it a little bit, which they think is what disinhibits the parts of the brain that are more emotional. So places around the amygdala, that kind of thing.
So that's
The
why
nucleus
people
accumbens.
report having like feeling a sense of oneness with the universe when they're on these drugs because they're actually losing their sense of self a little bit.
Yeah, that's the idea. The idea is that like you feel like out of yourself. You have out or trans. What do they call them? Trans.
Transcorporeal.
Okay, yeah, transcorporeal. It's like feelings, of like, oh, I lost who I was and left it behind, and I got super emotional, had a great journey. Well, it looks like that's why that's happening.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, your soul or you as a person or whatever they're thinking, whatever people theorize is happening, isn't really happening. So they were trying to figure out what leads to that sensation.
Yeah,
So it's
because it
pretty
happens a
interesting.
lot in near-death experiences. The same kind of chemistry sometimes to an oxygen-starved brain.
I know, yeah, I know. People are like, "My soul slipped out," and I'm like, maybe. Also, I could give you some LSD or some mushrooms, and you feel the same way.
And you're not dying though, so
Yeah.
maybe there's another indication.
Yeah, I actually was. I won't say who, but there's a certain pastor who has a blog, and he was like getting upset about like people talking about going to heaven when they clearly didn't, or the people that did. Like he wanted
Clearly,
them to
people
get
are
more press.
delusional.
Yeah, but like he was like, that's not consistent with the scriptures, and blah blah blah. So
True.
it's
He's
pretty
right
cool.
for the wrong reasons, as people often are.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, I
So,
think I hear birds. Are you outside?
oh yeah, let me close the
That's
window.
beautiful. Oh no, no, I don't think any of our listeners mind.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful birds. There's these asshole birds that live in Colorado, and their mating call takes place roughly from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Uh,
And so they'll just like perch under my window and be like, "I want to get laid," the little song they do when they want to mate.
bow, bow, bow,
I'm
bow.
like, you guys are the worst. I wish I could kill you all. But interesting. And the study, I saw the study link. Did it also say something about how like you're making more neural connections at the time, like you're thinking at a
Yeah.
deeper level?
Well, I think so. Yeah, yeah. They saw some of that, like in the fMRI. They saw that there was a kind of a lot of crosstalk between. So you get these things called neural pathways, right? And it's
Mhm.
essentially like a straight shot, like imagine like every time you used a piece of twine, you wrapped
Mhm.
another piece of twine around it. That's exaggerative. It's not that much building, but imagine if you did that over time. Let's say you use the same pathway 16 times, you're gonna get a big old thick rope. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what a neural pathway is. It's like kind of a reinforced pathway to like shoot down, our brains. Well,
Mhm.
what this does is it allowed a little less of that, like, kind of straight shooting down those neural pathways, and a little more crosstalk. So that's
Mhm.
why they think that people report things like, "Oh, I came up with all these new sensations or these new thoughts and totally creative," that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of Hollywood write screenplays on this stuff because it's uh it's supposed
Sounds
to be a
about right.
very transcendental, like creative moment.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. A lot of people say we talked about alcohol and creativity last podcast, and so it sounds like other substances can be used that way as well.
And I heard that they were starting to use it more with psychology in order to help people come to terms with like
Yes.
things like
Sorry,
working through things.
I'm very distasteful of that. That along with ketamine is a new one. You may have heard of
Uh,
ketamine. It's have you ever heard of it? Ketamine?
no, what's ketamine?
It's animal tranquilizer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of studies. We're one of the down here in University of Mississippi. We were one of the lead like pharmacology schools, and so it was a big hush hush project for a long time because it was funded by a couple drug companies and they had non-disclosures, but it finally came out. They're just trying to get ketamine out too. Basically, like LSD, ketamine, a lot of those that are trying to alleviate psychological difficulties or problems. Um, it, there's just a lot of skepticism, even by the researchers who are running it. Like one of them is Sufka, and he's like, yeah, I'm running it, yeah, and he's like, I don't really think it's a good thing. No, it's kind of stupid because of course you're gonna feel better when you're doped up on animal tranquilizers. These rats, because they use them on rats, and I was like, the rats are like stumbling around. They feel fucking fantastic, of course, but they kind of forget that they're stressed out because to stress them out, you pull them away from their conspecifics, which means there are other rats of their kind. So you
Hmm.
pull them away from those, and they start making distress calls, and they get a little anxious. And
Yeah.
so they give them
Well,
some ketamine, and they're like, "Hey, they feel better." And then they just send that off to the drug companies, and they're like, "Oh, look, a new treatment for depression." It's like, yeah, I mean, sure,
yeah.
it works, but is it
Whiskey's
is
a
it
new
is
treatment for depression.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes depression is a good behavioral, or it's a good indicator that something in your life isn't moving the direction you want it to move. So instead of just doping yourself up, sometimes we need to do things called behavioral activation, which is the leading like psychological treatment for that. And it actually
Ah,
gets better with no remission. Whereas with substances, as soon as you get off, you usually remit. In fact, you usually have a sort of a crash period when you get them off of SSRIs or SNRIs. But what do I know? What do I know?
give me the animal tranks.
I know. I'd love to play with them. That sounds like fun. Sure, let's go get doped up or whatever. I don't care. But on the other hand, if it was my sister or my mother or someone was like, "Hey, I've got soul-crushing depression," I wouldn't be like. I mean, I might be like, "Hey, go take some ketamine," but I'd also be like, but let's also fix the problem. What do I know?
I don't know. Let's leave the science for the real sciences, Jeremiah. Stick with psychology.
I'm gonna punch you in the nards,
Oh, Nard Dog.
nards. Oh man. Anyway, so that was another study that came up. Speaking of which, actually, there was a kind of another big one that came up about treating pain. And for a long time, we've been using ACT for chronic pain, acceptance commitment therapy, and works really well. It works better than a lot of the narcotics that end up falling off. The narcotics work better at first, but for a long-term chronic pain, as you know, morphine gets less effective over time, right? Develop a tolerance. So they're looking towards like psychological treatments as well, and ACT works really well. There's another one, the CBT, a little bit, but mostly ACT. Tends to seem to because pain is subjective. I don't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things that go on with pain. Okay, so one is the somatic cortex of yours. It tells you local, like where the pain is. So the pain pathways have two different ways. One says where the pain is. One says this is unpleasant. So those are two different pathways, right? One tells you localize where the pain is, right? So you're like, oh, there it is. But if you allow that part to fire off and in that part of your brain, but then you cut out the part that tells you it's unpleasant in the insular cortex, then they just say, oh, I feel a sensation down there. Like you've heard, when someone gets like surgery, like for example, well, no, I mean when someone gets like, what's that called, like a C-section or something, they say you feel pressure but you don't feel pain, right? And they say, yeah, that's right. So that's all they did is it numbs the pathway that tells you it's unpleasant, but you still know where it is. You say, where do you feel the pressure? I feel it in my cheek, or I feel it in my abdomen, or wherever they're doing surgery.
Sure.
But the pain pathway that tells you it's uncomfortable, which is in the insular cortex, no, anterior cingulate cortex. They say, oh, this is not, it doesn't activate there.
Okay.
That's interesting. So what ACT does is we use some fMRIs, and we had people use mindfulness, while they were experiencing chronic pain. And it quieted the activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. So that people still recognize that they were experiencing some sort of pressure, but the discomfort of it was lowered. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because you want to be able to tell where the pressure is, because pain's useful in that whole like self-diagnostic, something's hurting your foot kind of way.
Right, and the amount of severity of the pain, of how uncomfortable, tells you how bad you need to get away from it, right, or how quickly. But sometimes it's not useful.
Yeah, pain is useful in that way, but I see what you're saying.
Pretty cool, right?
Indeed. Speaking of creativity and someone who likes magic mushrooms, Shigeru Miyamoto just talked with Nintendo kind of investors after E3.
Yeah.
And he had some interesting things to say about the industry.
Really?
He said every year. Now, Shigeru Miyamoto, for people who don't know, he's like the creative mind behind most of Nintendo's big IPs, like Mario, Donkey Kong, Metroid, stuff like that.
Pikmin!
And he says every year a number of companies exhibit at E3, and Nintendo is compared with other companies, most likely with Sony and Microsoft. This year, the majority of what the other developers exhibited was bloody shooter software that was mainly set in violent surroundings or, in a different sense, realistic and cool worlds. Because so many software developers are competing in that category, it seemed like most of the titles of that show were of that kind. And then he kind of, he talked about how like Nintendo games kind of stood out because they're doing like different kinds of things than that. And then he says, to some, it might have seemed as though there wasn't a wide variety of software at E3, and as though many people followed the same direction to make their video games. I believe this is a revelation of creative immaturity on our part as creators in the video game industry. And he said, in entertainment, only one can become strong and all others will become weak, which he means to describe that there's a phenomenon in entertainment where one company creates an unprecedented offering, competitors attempt to copy that, and the customers then go with the original because there's no need to adopt the follow-on efforts. Like, you see this every time a new Disney movie comes out. There's like 12 like rip-offs of that movie, like in direct-to-DVD sales. So what he says is, my comment may be at risk of being misinterpreted, but in the digital content field, I think that our creativity is still immature. In the world of comic books and movies, there are people who are challenging themselves to be even more creative than before in creating their content. I believe that we who are developing these video games are still in a transitional period and will eventually step up into the phases where we expand and enrich the substance of our creativity. If we can manage Nintendo without losing sight of this challenge, I believe we might be able to create new entertainment that dominates the industry. So he kind of called out the entire video game industry as becoming kind of creative and mature and just sort of coasting on the same thing.
Wow. Well, if there's one guy that can do it, it's this guy. I mean, he's the king of video games because he was kind of in the very first era, and he's known for making creative video games. So, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a deep thinker about like what. I just like the way he's comparing video games to comic books and movies and saying like those guys are innovating because they've gotten to the point where they have to, but video games are such a new medium that we're kind of still at that coasting stage where we're like, okay, Halo 1 through 4, and also Gears of War 1 through 4, and God of War 1 through 4, and just like everyone's kind of doing these gritty, realistic pastels of brown. Like that's most of what dominated E3, and Nintendo has been accused of the same thing, right? Like Mario 1 through 70,000,
Yeah.
but they also came out with some new stuff, and he's saying we need to do more of this like creative new stuff instead of everyone following the same trend.
Yeah, I'm all behind that. Obviously, they're putting their money where their mouth is with the weird like ink shooter thing. The Japanese
that's
folks.
getting a lot of press.
It's very strange. Speaking of press, a couple more studies that I think are pretty important. First of all, behavioral therapy. I don't know how people understand about behavioral therapy versus antidepressants. Like, what's your understanding of that? Like going to a psychologist versus popping SSRIs. Like, how does that look with depression?
Well, I mean, I've heard you talk about this before. So my understanding of it is the antidepressants will have long-term effects that are not necessarily beneficial, whereas if you use ACT behaviorism, you can actually fix the problem without having to worry about staying on drugs for the next 20 years.
Okay, yeah. And how about efficacy? Like, which one's more effective?
Long term, I'd say behaviorism. I think maybe short term you get some. No, not even short term. There's like a 5%, like a statistically significant but not much of an increase of like against like super suicidal, like super bad depression. Like you'll see a small increase of efficacy with the drugs, but in just normal run-of-the-mill depression, like not really that effective at all.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's typically like CBT and behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy and behavior therapy, as well as antidepressants, are considered the front line gold standard treatment across all the ethics committees, across all boards like medical or psychological. Of course, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, so a lot of physicians just go ahead and just prescribe SSRIs. But as far as like efficacy rates, yeah, CBT and behavior therapy have 70 to 85% symptom alleviation over the short term and a 6-month follow-up. So whereas antidepressants, like I've already cited this before, something like 5% efficacy rate, and then the rest of it is placebo effect, which works pretty well. That's fine if it fixes them, good. But there's side effects like you can get long-term impotence, or that's very rare though. And well, I mean, I think it's like 12%. But and then things like there's a couple weird sensations you can get. Like one is like lightning, like they call it lightning, like down your brain to your spine. I've heard a few patients say this, and it's always weird to me. I'm like, excuse me? And they're like, well, it feels like lightning shooting down from my brain down my spine. And the first time I heard it, I was like, that's not a thing. But then I asked my supervisor, and he was like, oh, no, that's common. That's like something like 8 to 10% of people say that they feel that occasionally, just like once every few days or so. Just weird. That's a sensational one. The other one, like more important ones, are like, you get things like unintentional weight loss, which is fine for most people, but and things like
no one's gonna complain about that.
Yeah, another one is slow cognitive tempo and difficulty concentrating. Slow cognitive tempo just means you can't think as fast, and difficulty concentrating is exactly what it sounds like. But and over time, which one do you think has a higher relapse rate?
The SSRIs.
Yeah, exactly. Especially once you get off. If you get off, there's almost always this. Well, as your body starts to redistribute its neurochemicals, its levels, it says, all right, kind of screwed up for a minute, you get kind of depressed. But even off of it, or even on it, people typically have these problems again, because depression is about, it's like if you were running and you had bad form, you'd keep injuring yourself, right? Like, yeah, you can, do a little physical therapy. You can get better shoes to help correct that, right? SSRIs are like better shoes. They work okay sometimes, but they also aren't really fixing anything, and so people will still continue to hurt themselves over time. So
Right.
anyway,
Whereas
what therapy does
behavioral
is
therapy like
it's
gives you a better form of thinking,
yeah,
and then you can kind of shape your own brain that way without having to like just thinking in that new way is gonna have the same effect as the drugs, but it's your brain doing it itself instead of sort of forcing it with a hammer.
yeah, because the way that thoughts and experiences go through your brain is goes through certain pathways. Well, we manipulate a certain part of that, which has to do with interpretation and cognitive distance. That's what we call it, but typically it's just like how long you're letting things ruminate, and then how literally you're taking things. It's whatever. But we also do some practices like behavioral activation, like I said before, and a couple other things. Like basically, whenever it rears its head again, you're prepared. You'll be like, oh, hey, I know what this is. Here's that I suck story again kind of thing, so you can deal with it.
Right.
But anyway, there's a big study out, and everybody went nuts about it. Like, whoa, behavioral therapy. The title was Behavioral Therapy in Pediatric Antidepressant Treatment Reduces the Likelihood of Relapse. And everybody was going nuts. They were like, oh, this totally changes how we should approach kids. I was like, this is the truth for all antidepressants, not just behavioral therapy, but cognitive behavioral as well. This is just pills in general do this, right? You're more likely to relapse because you're not fixing the problem. It's like taking pain pills on a busted leg. Like you can do that; it'll help definitely, and it'll help your symptoms. You'll feel better. Good. I'm all for patients feeling better, but on the other hand, I kind of want to get them fixed too. So anyway, whatever.
Right.
That was one. Another one was about 20. They found another mindfulness study. I always keep my mind open, or my eye open for these. But 25 minutes of 3 times per week for 25 minutes lowers the level of cortisol found in people's saliva. Cortisol being the stress drug, or stress drug, the stress hormone in your body.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. So like at the end of the week, if they did it 3 times for 25 minutes, then they found significantly less cortisol in their saliva. So people obviously self-report matched that. They said, oh, I feel much less stressed. And then they put them through stress tests,
Right.
things like solve so many math problems this quickly or other things like that. And people not only had less stress before, they also had less stress during. So while they were doing these stress tests, they were just less stressed while they were going through these stressful scenarios. So it not only adds, it only dulls your feelings of stress, it also lowers your chance of feeling stressed in a stressful moment later. So, good stuff.
That definitely makes our next story a little bit sadder. This was sent to us by one of our listeners from Escapist Magazine. They had that study that shows that 2/3 of men prefer electric shock to being alone with their thoughts.
Yeah. This one's all over, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I looked at the study. Sadly, they only did 18 men in the study and 24 women, so like pretty small sample size.
Yeah.
What the study is that 67% of the men and only 25% of the women just could not be alone with their thoughts. They could not do the mindfulness. There was like a little button in the study, and it didn't do anything. It just shocked you. But apparently, 67% of the men they studied were like, I don't want to be bored, so I'm just going to shock myself. And they would hit that button.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you make of that?
I looked at it, and let's see, who did the study, remember? It was...
it was someone that...
Yeah, from University of Virginia Psych Department, Timothy Wilson.
Okay.
And
for some reason I was thinking
I looked at it, I was like, he's a psych professor, University of Psychology. Like, that's the easiest place to do it for extra credit.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that we only had a sample size of like 18 men kind of was strange to me, but like I wouldn't be surprised if that held true overall. Like if more men were into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I made of that too was small.
Overstimulated now, like it's hard to. Sorry, that random ad just played on this page. It's very confusing. But like I'm kind of the same way. Like if I'm gonna do the dishes, I will go out of my way to find my iPhone where it's charging and put a podcast on or something or an audiobook instead of just do the dishes and be alone with my thoughts. So I can kind of see the temptation. Like I was going to the eye doctor the other day, and they do this thing where they check you out and then they put you in a room and you're supposed to wait for the doctor and they don't allow cell phones in there, so you're just kind of waiting. And he took like 30 minutes, and I was just going out of my mind because I was just looking around the room for something to occupy myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see the temptation to shock, just to have something happening.
Yeah, I can get that. That's funny though, isn't it? Though, like we'd rather harm ourselves than be bored.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty strange. But for me, I see it as like the fact that like our body is the more you learn about your body in general, it's just like a bunch of different organs that are like collected together to interact with an environment, right? That's our purpose,
Mhm.
is to take in information, change our chemistry, and then put out behaviors, right? That's our whole deal.
Mhm.
So like I can see why like we're pressed to move forward even if it's in a bad direction, like people
Yeah.
like when people are like, I don't know what to do, and you're like, well, just get up and do something. You may not be the right one, but and that's soothing for us. We're like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, even if it's not the right
Yeah.
direction. So like for me, I
Right.
was like, yeah, that makes a little sense. Like
Actually,
they're trying to beat the boredom. But yeah, pretty cool. And this one was all over. I never know which studies are gonna like hit main media and everyone go nuts, but this was definitely one of them that I thought was pretty weird. That everybody was really excited about. They're like, oh, people hate being bored so much they shock themselves. I was like, well, first of all, it's low level shock. It's not like they're frying their hands off. It's just like a little buzz. And beyond that,
there
like
was a
enough where it's like not fun, but it's also like it's not like harmful. So it's just a little buzz. So it's probably just curiosity and that kind of thing.
yeah.
Oh
There
well,
was
whatever.
one outlier that said like shocked himself like 300 times during the 25
Oh
minutes.
really?
He just loved it. And they're like, yeah, we discounted that guy. We don't know what was happening with him.
What is going on? That is
He
awesome.
just he found that buzzer and was like, yeah.
This is what I'm talking about.
So
In psych research, man. We end up doing data cleanup just for people like that. You're like, what are you thinking? That is weird. But you don't really ask them afterwards because of anonymity. You're not allowed to just be like, hey, you were the guy who, can I ask you a few questions? So, whatever. But, yeah, did you hear
one
about
more
Blizzard's,
interesting.
oh,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Blizzard's chief creative officer, Rob Pardo, he left Blizzard. Did you hear about that?
No, why? Do you see why?
He just, I don't know, you never know with business because it's like they say whatever's
Creative
most
just
political. Yeah, and
going in
he just
and
said,
doing.
oh, I'm done with that path. It was great. So I don't know if he's leaving for somewhere else, but he's been there like 15, 20 years, something like that. He got the sword and everything that you get after 10 years. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard anything about it or like maybe more rumors, but it's weird.
No, I haven't been paying attention to Blizzard for a while. They've they've broken my heart too many times.
I understand. Yeah, weird. Well,
But in
oh yes.
hilarious news,
Yeah.
as another Escapist magazine story, Fox and Friends. Did you see that one where they took the BioShock Infinite
Yes.
logo? So
So ironic.
there's
Well,
there's
not
made a
ironic.
piece on Governor Rick Perry talking about how President Obama was, blah blah blah. President Obama's the worst, and they they used the freaking BioShock Infinite logo. They just ripped it right off. And the funny thing is, like Ken Levine, the guy who created it, like tweeted, he's just like, it's ironic. I don't, I'm fine with that. He's not worried about like copyright or anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I mean, like, how can you buy better press, man? That's good because everyone's gonna talk about that. So they did. So classy
Yeah.
move,
He
Ken.
just
Way
says
not to go
on,
supernova.
on Facebook, he just said, I'm just glad I could help.
Troll a little bit. That's awesome.
Oh man, you gotta know like whatever intern like was that like a like did they know what they were doing? Like this is the second time in a year that someone's used BioShock Infinite like ironically.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's classic. Um, yeah, I feel like there was another big thing in the news. Oh yeah, the Hearthstone tournament with the girls.
Oh
Girls can't be in the
geez,
Hearthstone tournament in
what
Sweden,
happened with
right?
that?
Was it Sweden
Yeah,
or Finland? Finland. Yeah, in Finland, like a very progressive country. And they were just like, hey, we're gonna have a Hearthstone tournament, which is like a card game on your computer. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna have a Hearthstone tournament, but girls can't fight guys, and you're not even allowed to play. So they threw a big old fit.
yeah,
And finally, they changed it, but you still can't. They still can't play each other, but at least girls can play against each other now. But they can't play guys.
yeah. The weird thing is they asked for clarification, like the press did. They were like, "Wait, are you saying that women can't play against guys now?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, that's what it is." Like they didn't even see a problem with it.
They're so cool with it. Yeah, and then they're like, well, why? And they're like, well, we want to become a legitimate sport, and we're trying to legitimize esports, right? We're trying to, electronic sports. We're trying to legitimize esports, so we can't have a bunch of girls screwing that up. That's not what they said, but essentially that's what they said. They're like, no, it'll take us seriously if
Yeah,
we
which
let
is
girls play
sad
guys. I was
because
like, why?
well, and women, they make about half of gamers. Like half of gamers are women. We've talked about that stat before, but a
Yeah,
very small percentage of them are esport players. Esporters, esportsmen.
yeah, sure.
So
Yeah, so this is odd.
but
Oh,
they did Did
You
change it,
blacked
right?
out there for a minute. Say again?
Oh, I was just gonna say they did change it though, right? They ended up fixing it.
Well, kind of. They said, all right, so fine, girls can play in a Hearthstone tournament, but you can't play guys because that's just confusing. That's what they said.
Why?
So it's kind of. Oh, you
Got
blocked
it.
out again. Your mic keeps giving out. Not really sure why.
I don't know what to do about that.
Oh,
How are we
anyway,
doing?
good so far. Well,
So yeah, anyway, it's weird. I understand why other sports like physical sports do that,
mhm. Yeah. Wait.
but
But why? Why? What's the point?
yeah, like can't let women have their female brains get a advantage.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is like chess. I mean, like no one's gonna, there's no reason why a girl couldn't like play a guy in a chess tournament. What?
Right. In fact, some of the best chess players in history have been women.
Yeah, and I don't know for listeners who don't know this, we talked about it once in an earlier podcast. As far as like IQ and statistics go, women have a higher average intelligence, I think by like 8 points if I remember right, than men on average. So that's probably that's probably not fair if to anyone to the guys. But
Oh, that's why they're putting them in their own league because they're too good.
that's it. If they said that, that would be awesome. But no, I think they were thinking they're inferior. Another interesting statistic, by the way, about IQ and gender is that men have the highest IQs are men, but also the lowest IQs are men. So on average, women are better
Yeah, men
off,
tend to go
and we go to
men tend
extremes.
to go too far on either side of the bell curve.
Yeah, we're so volatile, man. What are we doing? But anyway, yeah. So good for switching it back, but still kind of weird. Like just make it everyone can play each other.
Yeah, Finland, we expected better from you.
Yeah, bad game. But anyway, any more news?
Oh, that's about it.
All right, then let's move into gaming experiences. All right, gaming experiences. All right, this is the portion where we talk about what we played and how was this week going?
Not a lot of gaming. I spent some time at JT Eberhard's house. We played a little poker with his family.
Oh yeah, how did that go? You're not a big poker player.
No, I'm not, but I was able to use it to my advantage. I had them like print out a list of the different hands and how they were ranked.
Hmm.
And whenever I was bluffing, I would spend a lot of time studying that list, and then I would slowly raise my bluff, my ante. And they're like,
Nice.
oh shoot, why would he look at that thing and then raise? And so I was able to bluff my way out of a lot of crappy hands and still win using the like I'm too new to know better play.
Right. That's fun.
But yeah, I don't find poker all that interesting. It really feels so luck based, and it's just about like it's about luck and lying. And I like the lying aspect, but the luck is just you win some, you lose some. Sometimes you'll play like the best hand you could have, and you'll still lose just because the other guy got lucky. And
Yeah.
so that's a little less appealing.
I feel the exact same way. Like if it could be more of the bluffing and reading each other and understanding what the other person like reading people, I would be all for it. But
Mhm.
a lot like considering how I don't know, that's only like that's clearly like a backseat mechanic, right? Like you do it, but you can't
Yeah.
do it every hand, and like because of the way the game is, and I don't know. A lot of it is
Yeah,
just
you
like,
do it to mitigate luck. Like luck is the key factor, and then everything else is just like, well, you can still kind of walk away a little unscathed if you have bad luck.
right, by manipulating certain things, and then knowing when to play certain things and when to raise and that kind of thing. But yeah,
Because there were a few hands where I would go up against JT and like afterwards I'd lose the hand and then I'd be like, what should I have done differently? Because I want to get better at the game. And they're like, oh no, you played that perfectly. JT just got lucky and pulled the card out when he needed it. I'm like, okay, well, awesome, good game. The same reason
Yeah.
like Hearthstone can be frustrating sometimes because they'll just be like, oh, look at the top deck I just pulled out, and you're like, great, that's exactly the card you needed.
right, exactly. But at least like in Hearthstone, you create a deck. You don't do that in
It's
poker.
like Hearthstone if you don't get to create the deck.
Yeah, and everyone has the same deck. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But
Right.
anyway,
So not my favorite. Did you play anything this week?
I did. I got to play a little bit of teach a few new people, Sentinels of the Multiverse. Brought it over with a bunch of people who like card games, but I never played anything like this. So it was kind of funny because they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Well, this is your hero card, and here's your hero deck." And they're like, "Well, how do we? What do we do? Who do we? How do we play each other?" I'm like, "Well, we don't play each other. We play Baron Blade, evil scientist extraordinaire." But over time, they started to kind of get it, I think. and then you
Yeah, it's
start getting a couple little strategies.
the co-op thing where it's like people who aren't used to that. It's like, wait, we're all on the same team, and how do we win?
Right, right. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was fun because I think Amy was, my wife was one of the people, and I think she nailed it.
Mhm.
She was like, well, it's pretty fun, but like I think the fun's gonna come whenever we start developing strategies and building, like hero teams together. I was like, exactly, yeah. Like the basics are, learning the basics is never like this is great, but once you get the basics down, you can start doing the real fun. So it was good. It was a good
What
time.
was your
Other than
team?
that,
What was your super team?
oh yeah. Well, I just have the basic deck right now, or the original Sentinels of the Multiverse. So we
Uh,
played Legacy. Amy, of course, being a runner, played Tachyon, the super speedster.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and then Amy's mom, the religious person, played Fnatic, right? Makes sense.
Okay, makes
The
sense.
the angel religious zealot lady, and then Anna played Batman or Wraith,
Nice.
just because I don't know, Wraith's cool. But yeah, yeah, it was pretty fun. And then right at the very end, you see the little spark. They start to get it. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill this guy. Wait, wait. What if I do this? That'll set everybody up to do this, and we can finish Baron." And they're like, "Yeah, let's do that." And I was like, "There you go. That's it. That's how you play."
Yeah, it's those moments of coming up with cool plans and everyone gets excited about them.
Other than that, you and I talked on the phone for a while. We didn't game, but we talked about our upcoming you're gonna be here for like a week or so, and we talked about like some of the Edge of the Empire Star Wars role playing game ideas we had. So that
Oh,
was
so
fun.
good. I'm getting more and more in love with that system the more we play.
What is it about it? I mean, that gets you excited to go back and play.
I think it's just how much it encourages us, like everybody contributing. You know how like, when you're GMing something, like you feel like it's all on your shoulders, whether people have fun and whether the story is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
and I usually end up GMing, so that's like a big weight on my shoulders for the most part. 'Cause it's always up to me. I'm like, oh man, I gotta make sure everything's cool. I gotta model the behavior I want my players to do. I want them to see me like getting into character, and then hopefully I can get them to role play. But something about this system, everybody kind of wants to jump in and like help explain the dice pool and like get into the storytelling. And I can just kind of like throw it out there, and you guys will pick it up and run with it. It's less on me to make sure everyone has a good time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I just thought about that. So like, whenever you roll the dice, like me, let's say you're GMing, and I roll the die and I see like two
Hmm.
advantage come up, it's incumbent upon me to make the story. Because you say, how do you spin that? What do you do?
Right.
Right? So it is,
Right.
yeah, it really kind of encourages us co-opting the story together. So that's true. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's exactly. I think that's what it is because it's just more fun when we're all telling a story. The collaborative storytelling aspect is really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I'm
the
looking forward to playing that.
oh, I forgot in the news section. The D&D Next basic rules have come out. They're the free version that's out right now for the new D&D system.
Yeah, what's different about
And
that? They did something different, right?
yeah, so their modeling is they're having instead of like selling the books like they did in fourth edition, like they got kind of creamed by Pathfinder because the Pathfinder was like, oh, here's a bunch of free stuff. So what
Mhm.
they're doing this time is they're selling the player's handbook for like $45, and they're selling like a beginner set for like $20. But the basic rules are free, and those just cover four classes like fighter, wizard, rogue, and like cleric.
Hmm.
But you get 1 through 20 for free. So if you just want to try it out, then boom, you can. So the PDF's up on the D&D website right now to play. And the reason I forgot about it is because it's D&D Next is also really narrative focused, like it's more theater of the mind, less grid based like strategy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that niche is being filled better by Edge of the Empire. I just don't even feel that excited about D&D anymore for that.
Huh. So you mean that Edge of the Empire does what D&D Next is going to do, but better?
Yeah, Edge of the Empire, like it feels like D&D is trying to go for that narrative storytelling, but they're doing it through a lens of nostalgia, right? They're trying to appeal to people who played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in second edition, and they're trying to kind of bring those people back. So they're really sticking to the tired old tropes that just don't feel that exciting to me. Whereas Edge of the Empire, Star Wars, so awesome, and then I feel like the storytelling mechanic is better. So if I want to tell a storytelling RPG, why play D&D Next? I've got Edge of the Empire.
Yeah, Edge of the Empire has a lot of it feels less complex, which, is a bonus, but it's also
Mhm.
I don't know, like it's not like we've hit the bottom of it, so I'm wondering if the novelty is going to wear off. I mean, it hasn't yet, but that's something I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. Like because like
Yeah.
there's only like so many different kinds of weapons, which is good because it gets out of the mindset of like gear makes you a better person, but
Hmm.
it's also a little more shallow that way.
Yeah, but they've got plenty of splat books and new books coming out for that. So people who get really like Tim, people who like to customize their arsenal will have plenty of stuff to play with. And they're also making each like the next one that's coming out is called Age of Rebellion. It's more military themed, so I feel like thematically the game's going to change. So as we get bored of like Scum and Villainy, we'll start joining the Rebel Alliance, and when we get done with that, we'll start doing more Force stuff. Like I don't know, it feels like a lot more interesting the setting than like goblins kidnap the princess. We have to save her.
Yeah. I always have a soft spot for fantasy. I don't know, but I do like how this is really cool. It's kind of like Sentinels of the Multiverse in the sense that you get your original, and then like you start getting these different expansions and different like ways to talk about it. Like you said, like different settings, different kind of microcosms to explore.
Themes
Like
almost.
military and yeah, that's cool. It's like a season of Walking Dead. The game. It's like it's a
Right.
new way to look at the universe. Cool. Multiverse. But
Exactly.
yeah. So have you been playing anything else?
No, that's about it. We'll do a lot more gaming next week. Tomorrow. Tim and I are coming down to visit you, and so we will play The Last of Us. We're gonna do some more Edge of the Empire. We're gonna get a lot of gaming done.
That's right. You have never played The Last of Us, one of the best games to come out in the last decade. It's sad.
Right. We may have to do our. We'll have to think of an episode topic that we can take advantage of when we're all together, like couch co-op gaming or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've got a few games that we can play 4 player, so that'd be good. Well, cool. All right, then I guess that wraps up our gaming experiences section, right?
Yeah. Let's move into our in-depth analysis.
What is this? Oh, Tim's asking me my address. All right, I'll restart the call.